Welcome to the Renegade Lifestyle Podcast with me, George Papp, seeking to empower you with practical strategies and information to exit the matrix by speaking to experts and individuals making a difference. Check out the Renegade Lifestyle membership, get access to our early research newsletter, live webinars, which is packed with insider and detailed content from the team and some special guests as well. We also help you build your own freedom businesses and location independent incomes, improve health, spiritual journey, path, and help with that as much more as well. Our aim is to ultimately help you move away from a system that doesn't serve you, rise above the matrix, and be ungovernable. Today we are joined by Nelson and Alison from Sacred Birth Symposium, whose mission is to remind humanity of the sacredness of motherhood and of women's ability to give birth naturally without medical intervention. Thanks for joining. How are you guys today?
Hey, George.
Hi, George.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. We've been following the podcast, and I've personally gotten so much value from you speaking to David Morgan and Clive DeCarl and all these amazing people. So we're just glad to be on the podcast to spread the word about what we're trying to do. And, we think it's so important.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
No, thanks for coming on. It's the first time I've had someone in this field, really. It's a field that people overlook a lot within like exiting the matrix or even being free. Is something that kind of gets overlooked. A lot of people focus on the health aspect, but kind of maybe miss the sort of birthing and raising children during this time. So, it's going to be an interesting conversation to get your thoughts on what you're doing and how you're sort of helping the community as well. So, first of all, what is Sacred Birth Symposium?
Sacred Birth Symposium is going to be a 2-day conference, and it's going to be here in Austin, Texas, where we're located. We're having 11 speakers, and they're going to be birth professionals as well as parents themselves. And they're going to be speaking on topics all pertaining to the childbearing year. So everything from holistic and natural fertility and conception to, choices to make during the pregnancy, as well as home birth is going to be a huge focus. And then, of course, we're not going to neglect the postpartum period as well. So it's going to be really amazing. Our goal is to empower attendees with all of the tools and, most importantly, the education and knowledge to make, the right choice for them and to have a beautiful home birth if they so choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the goal of this symposium really isn't to, fight the system or whatever it is. It's really to empower people to take responsibility for birth. And you're absolutely right when you say that birth is overlooked in a sense, right? And a lot of times, and this is a conversation that, should include men, but men seem to sort of keep themselves out of it. Right, because we think that birth is something that the woman should do and she should take care of. I hear things like, "Oh, you do that, and I'll fix the AC and fix the plumbing and do all this stuff." Right, but it's a team effort. And George, you very well know because you're going through this right now. It should not exclude men because men are an important part of this experience, and our responsibility is to help our women give birth in a safe and secure environment, and also empower her to birth on her own terms. And that's really what this symposium is about. So we're not here to fight the system. We're here to defend, find solutions, and empower people to take back responsibility, because that's what we've done, especially in the US. We've given away our responsibility to the system, and now 95% of people give birth in a hospital, whereas 100 years ago it was actually flipped completely. It was actually 95% at home. So in just 100 years, they've progressed that far through propaganda, through control of the medical system. So it's really time for us as parents to take a stand.
Yeah, it's incredible to see the change that's happened from I mean, it was only like probably our grandparents' generation that would all have their children from home, give birth at home, and it was kind of the norm. And now there's most people. I mean, I've heard people booking in C-sections because they want a specific date for the baby to be born on, which like is crazy. But a lot of people maybe not won't understand the actual implications of that. So, what are your sort of main reasons to going down, the natural birth route at home, and obviously your story, which we need to hear, because it's inspiring. And I think, what are the benefits of having the child at home versus the hospital birth slash medical intervention, basically?
That's a great question. And yeah, to touch on like what you started to say in the beginning too about, it's overlooked, but it's actually such an important topic because we truly believe that birth has been for many people the root of a lot of their trauma. And unfortunately, because it happened when they were tiny little infants just entering this world, they're not even consciously aware of it. Um, Also the topic of circumcision in the country of America, it's wildly popular. If you're born in the hospital, and you're a baby boy, you're going to be circumcised. And that is extremely traumatic to the baby boy to have part of his sexual organ removed when he's a tiny little vulnerable human, and also just other things that happen in the hospital. And for the woman as well who's giving birth, she's in an uncomfortable, sterile environment with like bright lights and a lot of strangers. It's really not conducive to the natural birth process, and it interrupts the natural hormone cascade that occurs during birth. There's a number of interventions that are, very commonly used in the hospital. If you give birth in the hospital, it's probably going to be offered to you at the very least. If not, you might be coerced into taking an epidural or having Pitocin offered to you, which is a synthetic version of the natural hormone oxytocin, to progress labor along. And as soon as any of these interventions are introduced, it's a slippery slope and things are not going to go according to your plan and the idea of your birth that you had in your mind. So that can be a very traumatic experience for women, and in my personal opinion, contributes to postpartum depression. And then for the baby as well, like if you have a home birth, it's very likely that your baby is going to be born, in a calm, peaceful way on its own timeline, potentially into a tub of water and, make a very smooth transition from the womb to the earth, and not have a bunch of vaccines shot up into it. And we believe that contributes to, a more peaceful life and a less traumatic experience for the baby. And then, down the road, psychologically, this child is going to have a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm. And, everything that Alison has said encompasses all the consequences of having interventions from the medical system. But in a natural birth setting, to contrast that, right, your body is designed to literally do everything by itself, right? It from starting the contractions and everything, all these contractions and things that people feel are annoying or maybe frustrating or painful. There's a reason for all those things, right? The contractions help push the baby out. They squeeze the uterus so the baby gently flows through. It gets the contractions get longer and longer and more stable as you go through the process. And that's for a reason, right? Because there's a warm up period. And then as you push the baby through the canal, and, everything has a reason. Even going through the canal, for example, we just heard from a lady yesterday that because her child was cut open. I mean, because she was cut open and her child was delivered through a C-section, the child did not go through the birth canal, so the child still had liquid in its lungs. And when the child goes through the birth canal, typically what happens is the liquid gets squeezed out of the lungs, so the baby comes out just fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you interrupt all these natural processes, and yes, our bodies are literally designed to give birth. We've been doing this for thousands of years without the medical system, without the hospitals. When you interrupt that process, that's when all these issues start to happen. So that's what we're really advocating for, right? Is returning back to natural birth, to the way our bodies were meant to give birth in the setting that we're meant to be giving birth. And for a woman, that can be very different, right? Like some women want to give birth at home with a midwife and feel safe, while some of the women are wild and they want to go into a log cabin and somewhere else, out in nature and give birth there by themselves, And we empower these women to do all those things. There's so much more. There's so many more alternatives and options than just being in a hospital bed, right? And even being in the birthing center too, sometimes that can also be a slippery slope, because when you have someone there who's an attendant, they sometimes can also interject or, do things that may not have been necessary and may cause, may cause issues in the future. So that's what, we're going to be doing the Sacred Birth Symposium, is empowering these women and showing them the way, giving them the tools, the knowledge, the community to be able to do some of these things.
Sounds good. Sounds excellent. I've come to the conclusion from going through my process that when you go and visit these doctors or gynecologists, it seems like they don't do it out of, well, I'm sure 99% of them don't even really know what they're doing, in a sense, what they're affecting. So they're not doing it on purpose, but they obviously go through their procedures and stuff. But what I would say is they will focus on a statistic which is so minute. We had when they did blood tests on my wife, they basically said that she had a 1 in 88 chance of preeclampsia because of her blood pressure of some sort. So straight away, the result for that is, here's some baby aspirin. We're going to prescribe you some aspirin to fix that. Now, we didn't go ahead and take that because we don't believe in any medical intervention. And her blood pressure has slowly gone down naturally through the diet and just how it is. And, just further proof of these interventions that just aren't needed, but they just straight away throw it into the equation. At any cost that, they'll just throw it in there with even the smallest of risk. They will put that fear into you of the small risks that may occur. And then they obviously play on the fear because it is a child. And, they'll be able to intervene in that sense. So, yeah, it's very interesting. And it's an interesting process that I never thought would be like this from when I was, let's say, a few years ago. I would never have thought about this.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
And George, you probably, if you ask some of these people, have they ever seen a natural home birth? They would probably say no.
Yeah.
And they've never been educated about this in their schools. It's been completely left out.
Yeah, it's become a medical intervention. It's been a medical procedure instead of a natural event, which is what has been made to do. The body has been made to do.
Right.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So let's move to your story, because you recently had a baby. Obviously, congratulations. I knew you from previously, and when you were going through the pregnancy, Nelson. So it was great to hear everything was great, and you actually went through the home birth as well.
Thanks.
So yeah, I guess describe how it went. not
Mostly it was
not
Alison.
like maybe not to Nelson. Well, you're but Nelson was there. He was definitely there
He
doing
was.
his
He
thing.
was.
I'm sure.
I
But
was just a cheerleader, man. I was just like,
No, he was a
yeah.
very, very important part of the process. He
yeah,
was my rock.
yeah,
So, yeah, I'd be happy to share about it. It was a beautiful experience, and I'm so grateful that, we stuck to the plan of having a home birth. And, um, this might not be recommended, but we honestly didn't have a real backup plan for the hospital because it was never in my mind to even allow that as an option. All that to say, there was a moment during my labor where I was looking at Nelson straight in the eyes and I said, "Is this a mistake?" And I think that's like a panic moment that a lot of women have. Um, Basically, I went into the experience of labor thinking, I got this. I read Orgasmic Birth. I read Hypnobirthing. I read all the books. I've done the mental work. And, I'm good. I don't have any fear about birth. But inevitably, I think a lot of women have, and I definitely had, some subconscious fears still that I hadn't really addressed. So that did come up during the birth. And the way that manifested for me was just that I was very tense. And so while my body was having contractions, my uterus was contracting and trying to push the baby out, I was holding this physical tension in my body. And that made the contractions pretty excruciating for many hours. And so I spent a lot of time in the bathroom between the bathtub and the toilet, just back and forth, until our midwife came over, maybe, I guess, like 8 hours after my labor started. So things had progressed quite a bit. It felt like, at least. But when she came, she palpated my uterus and she told me that the baby was actually really high up. And so, she helped me to identify that that was because I was holding some tension in my body. And I'm really grateful that our midwife was trained in craniosacral therapy as well as herbalism. These things really contributed to it being a smoother experience. So the craniosacral therapy came into play when she helped me to relieve some of that tension by rocking my hips while I was lying on my side in bed, which arguably any husband could also do if they, realized that that would be helpful during the experience. And so that was very helpful. And then the turning point for me was really when my water broke, which was about 4 hours before our baby was born. So when my water broke over the toilet, which I was so grateful for, it happened over the toilet, not the bed or on the floor. The baby dropped down, and I could feel that she dropped down. The really, really super painful contractions stopped. I mean, it was still intense, but it was bearable. So at that point, they started getting the birthing pool ready in our kitchen. Yes, we did have a birthing pool.
And it helps so much.
It was so amazing.
Yeah.
And just to I had envisioned the birth happening there, and just to have it set up where we had envisioned it being, and moving into that space from the bathroom in our bedroom where I had been for, the last 10 plus hours. It was really an accomplishment, I guess, to make it into the birthing pool. And, it helped me to realize this is it, and it's happening. And I really was also so exhausted at that point that I just dropped into this surrender and more primal stage of the experience, where it was instinct driving me and not my thinking mind, which previously had been contributing to, the really painful contractions and kind of holding myself back. We had some things working against us. Nelson and I had both had a cold leading up to my labor, and Nelson actually still had a fever when I went into labor. So, and then it started also at bedtime. So we never actually went to sleep. And that's why I was so exhausted. So by the time I made it into the birthing tub, in the kitchen. I was like falling asleep in between contractions.
She had been awake for over 24 hours at that point.
Yeah.
Because what happened was she had a fever before, and then as she was recovering, I got a fever. So she was taking care of me. And then as I was recovering, that's when her labor started.
Yeah. But I was very grateful also that baby waited to come until, I was feeling a little bit better, which, again, the body is so intelligent and the baby is so intelligent, you know, that they work together. And I believe that was on purpose, and so at any rate, I think at the point that I got into the tub, it was just me, Nelson, and the midwife. And then the rest of the people who were going to be arriving showed up while I was already in the pool. And that was a doula and our birth photographer. And so by the time they showed up, the birthing hormones were definitely like into play at this point, because I remember like feeling really excited to see them and like introducing, like saying hi to them, like all excitedly. And I was just very present, even in between my naps, in between contractions. When I did wake up, I was like there. And I remember I had this moment where Nelson was behind me and the three women were in front of me, and I made eye contact with each one of them, like one at a time. Like I was just so like there and like primal and sneeze on me, baby.
Sorry, we'll get the editor to do something.
Yeah.
So I was pushing, and I felt the baby's head crown, and we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. But the midwife told me, the baby's head is there. You can reach down and touch it if you want. And I was like, are you sure I can touch it? Like, I wasn't sure if that was going to be okay, but I did feel her head, and I felt a lot of hair, which was so cool. There was this moment where, her head like went back into the birth canal after I had finished like pushing with a contraction. And then, it was this moment of like, oh no, like I lost that momentum I had gained, but it was actually fine and really easy to push again and like get her head out. I mean, it wasn't easy, and it, definitely came with its sensations and intensity, but it was a wonderful and amazing moment to know like that my baby was coming soon and that I did that. And then the team helped me like change positions. They realized like that would help the baby come out all the way. And so they moved me from, they assisted me since I was in the pool to move from like more of a squatting position to like leaning forward over the tub. And at that moment, her rest of her body shot out with a contraction, and the midwife caught her, and they helped like lift my leg over the umbilical cord and put her in my arms. And we had this really amazing moment where we, realized she was a girl, and everyone was so excited. It was just a really sweet moment.
Was it all that you envisioned it to be? Basically,
absolutely.
That's really
cool. Absolutely was. And I can't wait to do it again. Honestly,
we're going to say it's not this pleasurable, orgasmic thing. And it can be, right?
It certainly can be.
And we're not going to say that birth isn't challenging. It is.
Yeah.
Especially for the woman going through that. It's just think about it. You're pushing an entire human out of your body, right? So it's challenging, but that's where the transformation comes in. And the thing is, your body intelligently deals with all the things that happen. And when she came out of the water, peaceful. She just floated to the top, came out, wasn't crying, just peaceful. I mean, and as a man, just watching that, this whole thing happen and unfold, it's it's an incredible experience. I mean, you feel so connected to yourself, to humanity, to being a human. I mean, it's something that I hope that every person can experience for themselves, because it is an experience of a lifetime, and it changes you. It really does. It changes you. And this is the issue, right? Is that they are taking that away from us. They've taken it away, and we don't even know what they've done. We can't even comprehend it until we go back and experience that again, and then we understand, wow, this is what's happening, this is how they're doing it. And that's why we're so inspired, right? Because we need to sound the alarm. And the thing is, it's not just birth professionals that need to participate, it's us parents, it's us, the regular people, the people that need to take it back. And what's great about this is, once you learn how to do this by yourself and you get support for it in the community, you never have to go to the hospital again.
Yeah, I think it's definitely time to move away from the medical system, because
Totally.
Ultimately it's trying to kill you at this point. So the only option is to move away from it. Like, there is no other option. You need to face the reality that you have the destiny in your hands to be healthy and not need that system. And that's where we as people need to really get to that point. But a lot of people, unfortunately, have been traumatized to feel that there's external sources, affecting their health, not themselves, or something in their mind that they need to work on. But that's a whole other story within probably more spiritual realms. But yeah, it's definitely relevant, and it all combines into one holistic way of living. But I think that's it's a great story. Very, like, kind of makes me feel optimistic, and it makes me feel like, the drive to sort of do it your way, for sure. And I think it's definitely more aligned morally as well, for sure. To not rely on that medical system is definitely something we must try and do. So I guess, having said all of that, having a great natural birth at home, what are the sort of current blocks at the moment for, let's say, regular, people who haven't really thought about this, for women to have natural births? What are the blocks that they're potentially experiencing, and why would it not be as popular as it is? Because most people would go to a hospital.
Yeah, a great question, George. So, based on our experience, and again, we're not professionals, but as parents, speaking to other parents and doing the groundwork, we find that women, usually there's a block of three things. And the first is that women are just uninformed about birth. They're not even told about what it is, how it works and everything. And then they're uneducated about birth as well. And then the third is that they are afraid. And I think the biggest piece is that they are afraid, because once women know about natural home birth and they understand it, they're like, wow, I really want one. I really want this experience, but I'm scared. I'm scared because the hospital is all I know, and the hospital is all anyone has talked about. And my parents were born in a hospital. So I've never taken that step before. And, what I'll say to these women is that, you don't have to go all the way, right? You don't have to go all the way to a free birth where you're unassisted and there's no one there. You can baby step it. And the first step really is to get out of the hospital, right? So find a setting where you can birth outside of the hospital. And I would say do it at home. I highly recommend that, because you don't have to call the ambulance, right? You don't have to go to the hospital, give birth, and then be there for 3 days. And God knows what they do to your baby sometimes. It depends on where it is, but sometimes they take your baby away and they vaccinate it and they circumcise it without even you knowing. And as a woman, you are in your most vulnerable state. And it's terrible. Some places now, they don't separate the dad and the mom, but in some places they still do that. And they separate the dad and the mom, and the mom is in the birth state, the birth consciousness state, and she can't fully make decisions or intelligent decisions for
It's just a
herself.
very vulnerable
It
time.
is,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're not in that space. You're not in that
Right,
space
right.
frame of mind, I guess. At
You're
that
yeah,
point,
you're not
to fight much, you're just
no,
focused
right,
on that one thing. Yeah,
right. And then coercion, we talked about coercion. It doesn't look like someone, forcing you to go do things. The coercion looks like, hey, do you want Pitocin? And then 5 minutes later, do you want Pitocin? And then 10 minutes later, do you want? So they ask you literally 10 times, and then you eventually just say yes because you're like, fine, go away, right? Like, I'm in pain, so yes, whatever, right? That's the kind of mentality that you'll have. Um, so for the women, right, you're in a very vulnerable state. One, you want to be around people you trust. So that's number one, right? And then two, be in a setting that you want to be in. So the home for us was the best option because, we literally had her in our kitchen, and then 3 hours later, we were cooking dinner. And mom was safe in the bed, and we didn't have to go anywhere. It was so much easier, and we didn't realize this because this was our first time having a home birth and a first child. But when you go through all these experiences and checks all the boxes, you realize just how ridiculous the whole propaganda is. And so for women, the first step really is to inform yourself about it, educate yourself, go search YouTube, right? Look online, look up natural home birth. Look at how transformative and how amazing that experience can be. Know that not everyone is going to have that pleasurable experience, and some of these women having pleasurable births, which do happen, by the way. Some women don't even feel pain, and it's actually pleasurable. And there is a film called Orgasmic Birth, and I highly recommend people watch it. But some women even have orgasms while they're giving birth. So it really, once you get to a certain point, your body just takes over, right? And once you surrender, as Alison was saying, you have nothing to fear.
Mm-hmm. I will add to everything Nelson said, to answer your question about why it's not more popular and why it's not most women's first choice is largely because of society. First of all, we have been taken away as women from the home birth setting with midwives into the hospital. And like Nelson said, your parents are born at a hospital, you were born at a hospital, everyone you know was born at a hospital. So it's just your first inclination to go to the hospital, right? And furthermore, the media in movies and television, the way that they portray birth is that it's this crazy medical experience, like always in a hospital and like super painful, just really chaotic. And honestly, not the way birth really should be. That's not how they portray it at all. They make it out to be like, oh my God, such a crazy experience. You're going to want to be in the hospital for this one,
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is women have never seen a natural home birth before, so they don't know what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And then once a lot of these women actually experience one, so I encourage you, if you know someone is having a home birth and they invite you to go, by all means go, because that's how a lot of women start to think outside the box. They're like, whoa, you can just squat down and give birth. Wait, what? And then they start to think and gets their wheels turning. And then they want a home birth for themselves. And that's how, we've talked to a few people, and that's how they chose to have a home birth, is they attended a home birth and they loved it so much that they went and had a natural one.
Seems like women in that position tend to always sort of go for advice to their mum, their own mother, if mm-hmm. they're in the picture. And usually, 9 times out of 10, that mother's also given birth in a hospital. So it's very difficult
right.
to break that cycle,
right?
Because it's just a constant cycle. And I'm definitely commending you for that bravery, because it is bravery, really, because the status quo is to go to hospital. It's a status quo that is hard to, even in our community of people where you're more freedom minded, it's still something that people still are very fearful of. And I think that's really commendable that you know took that first drive, especially with the first child as well. Because normally, like, okay, first child, let's go hospital. It seems like the easiest thing to do. But you went fully in, and I think that's really commendable. Really is. Excellent stuff. Excellent.
Yeah, thank
Let's go into the symposium a bit more. Obviously, the event is happening. Is it in 43 days?
Yeah, about
Yeah,
there.
about that. Okay, so I mean,
We're very close, a month and a
getting
half.
getting closer? Yeah. So I mean, what will people gain from attending that event? What does it look like? And is it going to be a live thing? Is it online as well? If people can't attend in Austin, how will it work? And yeah, what will people gain?
Hmm. So with the symposium, we're focusing on being local right now. And the reason for that is because most women, when they seek help, they will need someone who's local, right? For yourself, we wish we could find someone who's on the same page as that lady you mentioned in the UK, in where you are. So we're trying to do that right now, and we're focusing local. We're gathering all the professionals that we know are on the same page, and women who attend these conferences. You don't have to just be a mother. You can also be a birth professional attending this conference. So for a mother attending this conference, you will be informed, educated, and connected with all the people who understand home birth, who respect medical freedom and true informed consent. And you can basically hire your whole birth team there. And also connect with a community of mothers who can provide support. I think that's really the most important thing. So informed, get educated, and then get connected with the community. And then for birth professionals who are maybe just starting out their career or who really want to connect with mothers, this is a great place to come and attend and learn from senior birth professionals, but also connect with mothers who need help. And it's a great way to kind of jumpstart your career. So we want to essentially build a community together and build this platform so that people have a way to find information to get them. One of the biggest issues we've heard recently is that women don't know where to look, right? Because once you hear about natural home birth and you search Google, I mean, you're not going to find anything. So we're going to be providing that platform where women can go and get educated, get the information. So when you attend this conference, it's a 2-day conference, and it'll basically walk you through the whole pregnancy. So all the way from conceiving to the first trimester to the fourth trimester, postpartum. So it's comprehensive. And when you walk away, you will walk away with a companion guide that will help you internalize everything you've learned. You'll walk away with a network list, so a network of all the practitioners you need, and we'll have chiropractors, doulas, midwives, birth keepers, photographers, lactation consultants, the whole 9 yards. And what's great too is we'll also be recording the sessions and then putting it online. So attendees who are able to attend in person, they'll get access to the content for free. However, for people who are not able to attend, once we get the platform online, you can access all the content for a small fee. And that way, we help spread the word, spread the knowledge. And the plan is really to iterate on that in the future. So we want to have a second one and a third one and use this platform to really promote all the birth professionals in the space and promote that knowledge. So definitely, if you're in Austin, Texas, or in the Texas area and need help with home birth, you got to attend this conference. It's going to be an amazing conference. The people that we've brought on to speak are so knowledgeable, so professional, and they do a lot of charitable work too. I mean, like one of our like the lactation consultant that's speaking, she offers free consultations for veterans, for people who are in the military. So these are the type of people that will be speaking in the event. People who actually care about people and are in it to help. They're not in it to profit. So if you guys are interested, go to www.sacred-birth.com, and that's our website where you can sign up for a newsletter or purchase a ticket. And you can also connect with us on Instagram and Telegram at Sacred Birth Symposium. And on Facebook, you can also find the event. It's called Sacred Birth Symposium. You should be able to just search the event and look it up, and you can join. And we're going to be rolling out more updates about the event itself. There are going to be speakers that we're releasing. There are going to be activities that we're going to be doing. So there's just so much to share, and I want you guys to be a part of it. So hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I think the amount of information out there on Google and on YouTube doesn't give us the true information. It will give you a partial part of what it is, but it will come with a load of fear as well. So basically, right. I like the fact that you're promoting this information in a real truthful and from experience point of view, as well as getting people in who know what they're doing and who have obviously been doing this for years. But when I first came into this experience myself, since my wife's been pregnant, like I didn't know where to look, to be honest. Personally, I didn't know where to go, to be honest. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I knew
Right.
that there was alternatives, of course, but I just didn't know where to look for that information. So I think what you're doing is great, and hopefully make it a global thing. So like people in Europe and elsewhere can get that, but they can also join online also. But yeah, it would be great to have something local around here as well.
And I love that you mentioned that, George, at the end, to inspire other people to do the same thing. So our vision for the future for Sacred Birth Symposium is that we want to basically put together a framework that anyone can do. So if you're a parent and you had a home birth and you felt so inspired that you want to go do your own Sacred Birth Symposium in Cyprus or in the UK or in Australia or wherever it is you are, we want to enable you to do that, because that's how we build a decentralized organization.
Yeah.
And if they try and take us down, I mean, they're going to try and take down 2,000 plus of us, right? Who are all doing our own events and being empowered through it, gaining financial stability through it. That's what we want to do. We want to help these people do what they love and feel good about doing it, and also support themselves, right? And that's the whole premise of your podcast too, is finding solutions to be self-sufficient in a time of crisis, right? And make no mistake, we are in a time of crisis right now, and we have been for many years. It's just we just aren't aware of it until we really start looking in the depths of what's going on, and you'll find that we're under attack.
Yeah, I think that's excellent information. I guess also the amazing thing is that when you get the information from people who are in, like from the speakers, for example, when you get in touch with those kind of people, your fear slowly will, diminish, because you will then have confidence in this way of birthing. It's just all about what you feed the mind, right? If you're in fear, it most likely will tend to not go right. So I think that it's great to have that sort of information from people who are in that space. So yeah, excellent stuff. So thank you very much, guys, for having the time here on my show. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to speak to people who are going through this, especially now myself starting to go through this as well. So excellent stuff. We'll have all the links. We'll have all the links to the Sacred Birth Symposium in the show notes. Also, check out the website renegadelifestyle.net, and remember to share and subscribe to the podcast. And if you know someone that might find value from this episode, definitely share it to them. Peace and love to you all. Thank you guys again for coming on.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Cheers.